All right, what did we accomplish yesterday? What was the big concept that we used for the first time?
User authentication, right?
User authentication, kind of our second day in user authentication. What package did we use in authentication yesterday?
Sessions.
Express sessions and express connect sequelize, right, for those sessions. So why do we need sessions? We need sessions because at the time of a login, we have the username and the password. We can look them up in the database. We can do all the hashing stuff. But then we run into a problem of, well, how do we know if they're logged in or not on subsequent sessions? And so those sessions are set up to carry over so that when they make subsequent API requests, we can not only know if they're logged in or not logged in, we can also know who they are, right? And so once we put that information into a session, we're able to identify that user on subsequent API calls until they sign out. Now, we got that set up last night, but we didn't really start using them, right? We didn't start going into our endpoints and start the verification or any of that kind of stuff. So tonight we're going to get into kind of sessions part 2. Don't worry, the pain is over. Last night is the hardest class of the entire curriculum, and my absolute least favorite to teach. I was talking to Artrell after class, and he was like, how do you know all of this stuff? And I said, well, up until last night, I could do most of that from memory. I wasn't referencing any other code. We hit that threshold last night where I'm like, there's no way I could attempt to teach this without referencing the code up on the other monitor. So just a word of encouragement there for you. If you found last night hard, don't worry, last night was hard. All of that setup for sessions is such a pain because you can't really test it and you need to do it in 5 or 6 different places to get it all working together. So we're over the worst of it. We've got our sessions functional. We're going to be using our sessions a little bit more tonight, but we don't have to go through all of the pain of the setup. So we're going to get our logout working. We're going to get our authentication working. We're going to learn about our first association in the database. How do we do the equivalent of a join in SQL in SQLize? So we're going to learn how to relate our data together, how to pull all of that back. We're going to integrate that all into the front end. And then we're going to come really close to wrapping up this project. We only have one more day left on this project. That will be on Tuesday because we are off on Monday. And that will be it. You guys will be done with me until the very last week of the program. Clyde, what's going on?
I have a question about 2 things. So are we gonna do the forget password that like that option are you going to teach us? And second is like sometimes most of the time after 3 times if you put the password wrong, it's not gonna allow. So are we going to do something like that?
We won't do any account lockout, although that's totally something that you could try on your own. We won't do the account lockout because normally that's paired with like, hey, now you're required to do the forgot your password flow. Forget your password or forgot your password is kind of complicated because we need to send an email. And in order to send an email in the back end, or in order to send an email, you have to do it in the back end. You can't do it in the front end alone. And so that's why it gets a little complicated. I am hoping that we have time on Tuesday to implement that. And the class can kind of decide, hey, do I want to drop out and work on my capstone, or do I want to follow along with the forgot password flow? The reason why the forgot password flow is beneficial is because the same way we send emails for forgot password is the same way that you would send an email if someone filled out like a contact form for your website and you wanted to get that sent in an email. So I am hoping that we have time on that, have time for that on Tuesday, but we'll see how much we get done tonight. And if we don't end up getting it on Tuesday, I will share the cohort 3 code with everyone where we did go over that forgot password flow. Any other questions? Any light bulb moments that you care to share? Any yay moments for progress on your capstone? Any WTF moments after looking over yesterday's code?
I was thinking actually, like I spent so much, like maybe one day figuring out my login page and everything, and then you just made it. If I'd known that before, I could have just copied your paste and pasted it. So that's
So
where
you could have copied and pasted, but there are times where you'll have a technical test, right, to get a job, even if it isn't directly in programming, and the technical test could be something as simple as build a login page on the front end, or get started on an authentication flow in the back end, or use sessions in order to store user authentication. And so there is something to be said about it's kind of like when you write down notes, you remember it better, even though it has nothing to do with it actually being saved in your memory. It's the action of writing it down is what gets it to stay in your memory a little bit more. The same goes for coding it, right? Like there's definitely practice in saying, all right, we did it in class and I followed along in class. Now can I do it on my own? And that's good for debugging. That's good for cementing the concepts, all of that kind of stuff. So yes, it's a little bit of duplicated effort, but I do think it's worth it to get the practice. Any other questions before we dive in tonight? I know we've got a couple people joining us now. We have not started on any code yet, but just doing a quick review before we dive in.
I was ordered by Liza to do some advertisement. So there's a I'm pretty sure everybody knows about the Micron and how that's making an impact in Syracuse. If anybody's interested, there's an event at the Salt City Market Friday, February 24th. I sent it in Slack, so
Thank you for sharing. And we're trying still to get Liza to come into class. She might be there on Tuesday. We're trading messages back and forth about a skills-based hiring event. And so we're working with her to see if we can get her in to give you the details of that. But remember, you're all part of the the Erie 21 Lock 4 program. And so you get access to resources at Center State, not only Liza, who's the Syracuse Surge Coordinator, but also with Keenan, who does a bunch of career development stuff. You, of course, have Lars module coming up in 2-ish weeks from now, and a lot of great content there. That is an in-person week where you'll still be able to tune in remotely if you want, but Laura has a great program and a ton of resources set up for you. So even if you have finished that week, I would encourage you to still attend class, but it is optional for attendance, if and only if you've completed the modules. Patrick, what's up?
Hey, I wasn't here yesterday. Would you mind if I had the day 3 both chat ends, please?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Let me get that for you guys right now. Any other questions before we dive into code? Okay. Let me share my screen. I'm headed to my week 20, my day 3, my blog backend. I am deleting my node modules from both the backend and the front end. I'm going to make a zip in case you guys want to use my code instead. That is now in Slack. I am going to duplicate my day 3 into my day 4. I'm going to grab my backend and open that in VS Code. I'm going to grab my front end and also open that in VS Code. Excuse me, front end, please open. Thank you. I'm going to right click open in integrated terminal and npm install. And I'm also going to do that in my front end npm install. I'm going to do my npm start on the back end. And I will note, if you are using my code instead of your own code, make sure in db.js, you change your username right here. Your username should be the username of your computer, not hack upstate. So if you get an error message that the role does not exist, I will come over and beat you myself, because I've already told you how to fix that error. Make sure db.js does not have hack upstate in it. We won't be doing a ton of work in this db.js file. We will be editing a couple files. So a couple lines, I mean. So if you copy and paste from this file at any point tonight, please, for the love of God, make sure that your username is changed from hack upstate to whatever your database username is. Also, switching over to the front end, I'm going to do my npm start over there. Once that file fires up, I should. Oh, npm start. Missed the P in npm. That will get me up and running in the browser. I should see some of my posts in there. I'm going to get a live share going for you guys, and we should be good to dive in. Live share is in Zoom. Let's also do our. That goes there. And we're starting in the post editor tonight. So if you pop open the post editor
Sorry.
in the front. Yep. Question?
I just opened my blog backend and it crashed. It wasn't crashed before we left last night, so I'm not sure. I tried deactivating it and activating it back on, but it's still crashed.
Okay. And what you deactivated was the server started, right?
Server, it says, yeah,
And what's the error?
I saying arrow cannot find package express, but it was working fine yesterday. Package express session.
Different error. In your backend terminal, Control C to stop, and then npm install. And once the install goes through, then start and see if that fixes it. Cannot find package,
I
usually. Go ahead.
I had already did the install, so I'm not sure.
So if it isn't working, do npm install and then whatever the name of the package is that it can't find. And then do an npm start and see if that does it.
Yeah, I'm back on.
Good work. Sometimes node modules just gets a little funky. There are a lot of little files in there, like literally hundreds of thousands of little JavaScript files. So sometimes you just need to do a reinstall. Oftentimes when there's an error in node modules, I end up deleting the whole folder and just rerunning the install. And that cleans out some of the gunk in there sometimes. So node modules just is a finicky kind of fickle thing.
I have a question. So how can we tell which, I know that, we've been copying and pasting and duplicating the folders. How can we tell which ones are correct? Like which day we're in that specific folder?
Like once you have it open in VS Code.
Yeah.
There's a good little trick over here. If you right click on the file, you can go down to reveal in Finder and that will pop open the Finder window for you, and then you can kind of just scroll over and see that you're in day 4.
And that's, okay.
The other trick that you can do is if you open a new integrated terminal, you can run the pwd command down in the terminal, and that will also show you what day you're in the past.
Okay, so it's just day 3. Okay. Thank you.
Feel like one final way you can do it, 3 ways you can do it. The other way is if you hover over one of the files, it will show you the file path for it, and that will also include day 3 or day 4.
Now I see it. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. I just didn't, I was like, oh my God, I left the other ones open and I don't know which
Good question.
which one's what.
You don't want to get halfway into tonight and then be like, where is all my code?
Right? That'd be terrible.
And remember that why we break these up day by day is at work, you would never be duplicating the project day over day. But the reason why we do that is because at the end of the blog project, if you're this weekend trying to take some concepts that we did in class and apply them into your own capstone, you're going to get so lost because you're like, this is like 400 lines of code. Where do I even start? And so that's
Right.
why we break it up day by day to make it a little bit easier to say, hey, do I have all the code squeezed out of what we did in class and transferred into my capstone? And if you do, then it becomes a little bit easier to go day over day. Clyde, what's up?
Jennifer posted something about the Lemoyne login, so yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Clyde, for letting me know.
Waited for you to finish, Max, but I realized you're not gonna finish, so that's why I raised the hand.
Looks like she's on. Good. See her in a second. Give everyone just 1 more minute, and then we will dive into where we left off. Okay. Anyone need help or another minute before we dive in? Okay. So we are going to start at our post editor screen. Where we left off was we were trying to get this check auth code to work, right? And so we were in this status, auth status. So let's go find that in our backend. Our auth status was here. And we had to do all of this work to get the rec session user stored in this session. Again, why do we need sessions in the first place? It's so we can tell what user is logged in and not logged in on subsequent API calls. We can do it on the login API call easily because we have their username, their password, or their email and their password. We're good to go there. The problem is what happens when they try to access other parts of the site. We want to know if they are signed in or not on subsequent API calls. That's what sessions solves for us. So if I go to my Chrome page and I go over to the post editor, I have my session information log out here. This is exactly what I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if there is a rec.session.user res.send logged in true, else res.send logged in false. And I'm also going to remove my res.send here. It is a very bad idea to have multiple res.sends in your Express code. In this case, per endpoint, In this case, it's okay because it's an if else, right? There's no way we could send res.send logged in true and also send res.send logged in false. But we want to make sure that we don't res.send twice because then we get a weird error. So I'm going to take that one out and make sure we only have one response for every request coming in. Now that I've got all of that set up, I'm going to switch back over to my front end code. And in my front end, I'm going to say, hey, if the data is logged in, we're actually going to do nothing. They're allowed on this page. Else, navigate to our home page. And you know what? Before we do that, you can say, put a little alert in there. So we had our data already getting parsed out on our front end. All we need to do is say, if they are logged in, they're cool. They're allowed to be on here. They're allowed to write a new post. But if they aren't allowed here, tell them you're not authorized and throw them back on the home page. There's a minute there, and then we'll roll forward. Totally not delaying and opening my reference code. I don't know what you're talking about. So to test this, we're going to go over to the browser. And I'm going to click on my login button. I'm going to sign in with an account that I know is valid. And I'm going to type in my top secret password. And I get fluff off, not authorized. Well, that's not good. The user is signed in. Something's not working there. So I'm going to check my front end code. And we want to be really careful here. What did I send back to the front end logged in? What did I check on the front end itself is logged in? Okay, that's a mistake. That's why it's not lining up. So let's change our is logged in to just logged in. Okay, so we go back to our browser. We go to our login. We try and sign in. Takes me to my post editor. Great, I'm good to go. I'm logged in. But we just wrote some code after we modified our data.logged in. Make sure you don't follow me and have the word is in there. That should say logged in because it's got to match with the backend here. But we are checking this and we're like, all right, we handled the true case. But before we move on, before we build any other features, how do we get this? How do we know if we're not logged in? Well, it's all based off of the session. How do I get rid of the session? How would you normally, on any site that you've logged into, deal with wanting to see what happens if you weren't logged in?
Delete the cookies.
You could delete the cookies, but what's the non-developer answer? What would you do to get out of the site?
Oh, log out.
You would log out. Okay, well, why don't we build a log out? We have our login, we might as well build a log out. So I'm going to go to my post editor page. I'm going to go down to my return, and maybe let's do it before the form. So underneath my post editor, I'm going to make a span, and the span is going to say log out. And I'm going to put some styling on that. I'm going to say text under text decoration is underline, and my color is going to be blue. And now I need to handle this logout. So I do my on click. And I say log out, clicked. And I'm going to do my const log out clicked. It's equal to an async function. And what do we need to do? We need to log out not only on the front end, we need to go tell the server, heads up, I'm done here. I'm signing out. You don't need to worry about me anymore. In order to do that, we're going to await a fetch. The fetch that we're going to go to is HTTP localhost 3001. And we're going to go log out. But in order to log out, we need some information. We need to make sure that the credentials are included. We need to know, hey, who are you trying to log out? We can't log you out unless we know who you are. Okay. Now we're doing a log out. Come over to our code and I'm like, well, I've got this login, this huge complicated function. The good news is the logout is a little bit easier. So we go down and we say server.get our logout, and our logout only needs to do two things. Gets our rec and rs, we rec.session.destroy. We're saying, hey, that session is over. Destroy it. We want to forget who they are. We are done with that session. And then we always want to res.send something back. So let's say logged in is false. So in our post editor, we added our logout button. We threw some styling on it so it looks like a link. We use our on click for logout clicked, and then we had to tell it how do you log out. So we created our logout clicked function up here. We made a fetch call to log out. We made sure the fetch was including the credentials because we need to know who is it that we're trying to log out. Then over in the back end, we used our logout that lines up with our logout in the front end. And we destroyed the session, then sent back to the front end, hey, heads up, session is destroyed. I listened to you, I logged you out. The last thing we should probably do in our front end on our logout clicked is navigate you back to the home page. Normally, when we log someone out, we don't want to just leave them on the same page that only a logged in user can see. We want to bounce them back to the home page and say, hey, you're logged out, you're good to go. Leave this up for a minute, and then we'll switch over to trying to test it. Rest of our code is in this span tag, in this logout clicked function, and then our new server.get logout on the back end.
I'm sorry, Max. I was trying to do the test for if I could even log in. It just says emails not found.
Share screen.
I can't share my screen.
Email not found. Check your login function. Oh, check Beekeeper and see what email is in the sign up table.
My email is in there and I know what the password is. That's what I put in. And for some reason, it's not allowing me to.
In your login function, do you have the keyword where in the find one query right here? Do you have the where in your login endpoint?
Log in.
On yours, instead of
That's the
user, it should
logout.
be sign up. In your
No,
code, it should be sign
the-
up dot find one, and then just make sure you have the where in here.
Going. Well, I'm using the same code as you are for my.
Oh, for the blog?
yesterday's code,
Okay.
which is.
So then it should be
I'm
user
not
find
doing the
one with the
capstone.
where.
capstone user, and that's in the server.
That's in server under login. I'm going to switch over to testing because I think most of you guys are caught up. I go over to Chrome. I'm going to hit my logout button. My logout should take me to my home page. Now I'm going to be a sneaky mofo and try and post without being logged in. So I'm going to go up to my URL. I'm going to go to my post editor and I get my fluff off not authorized. If you don't have this after clicking log out, something's not working. Raise your hand for help. If you do get this, hit OK. We got it twice for some reason. That's okay. We'll leave that be. Now I'm going to go to my login. I'm going to try and log in. And I'm back in my post editor. So this is pretty cool, right? That I'm in here. And if I log out, I can't sneak my way into the post editor. I should be authenticated in order to get to the post editor. And if I try and find my way into the post editor, it boots me back to the home page unless I'm logged in. Did anyone not have that behavior? If you hit the logout button on post editor, you should get back to the home page. And then if you go up to your URL and manually take yourself to the post editor, you should get an error and it should dump you back on the home page.
Sorry, can you repeat that step
Mhm.
again? I apologize.
If you hit login and sign in properly, you
Okay.
should be able to get to the post editor.
Yes. What was the email they used? max@zane.tech?
You got it.
Yeah, it's not letting me log in.
And you're using the password QWERTY.
QWERTY, yep.
Share screen, let's take a look.
So once I press login, it won't
All right,
take
you
me.
got nothing. All right, so let's start at your front end. And let's go to the login page.
Oh, the login page?
And And so we say, if there is a login data dot error, alert it, otherwise take you to post editor. And I don't think that's happening. So let's go to the login in server.js. In server.js, just scroll up a little bit. You should have a login in there. Yep. Okay. Login, find the user. There's not a user, say it's not found. Else check to see if there's a password. Okay, I don't see any problems with any of that. So I'm going to request remote and let's figure it out. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to console log out our login data and we're going to see what's coming back from the server. So let me
So
go
could
back
it be that the fetch await is oh
All right, so we got a fair to fetch, and the problem is you're on 3003 tonight, but your cores is set up for 3002.
mm,
So if we bump that up to 3003
I
and clear all of this and log in, we get a different error. So email not found, that's progress. I can take out the console log here. And we're gonna go check in your beekeeper. And your beekeeper, for whatever reason, has that. So let's go back. Let's log in. Now we're getting not authorized, but we just signed in. We should be authorized. So something's wrong.
mm.
We're gonna look at oh, get out of here. We're gonna look at your login. Your login is including the credentials, so everything's fine there. So let's start with the front end. And your front end is
Is it that the const response await?
here's your auth status. This is what we're trying to check, and you're including the credentials like you should. But the problem is in your backend, you're sending logged in camel cased, and what are you checking for over here? Logged in with a capital. So let's see if that fixes it. So it's going to boot us to the home page. That's fine. Let's go back to login. Let's log in. We're in. We get no errors. That's cool. So we're going to log out. And we have another failed to fetch that it cannot find the URL logout. So let's come over here. Well, there's your logout. That's weird. Oh,
It's in post editor. 969.
are you local hot?
S.
All right. Try that again. Clear everything out here. We hit our logout button. It takes us to our home page. So
Mhm.
we think everything's working, but this is where the magic is. This is how we actually test it. And I go to post editor and sneak my way in, even though I'm not logged in.
Mm.
So we hit post editor and it says not authorized. And it takes me back to my home page.
So I'm good.
You're good to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Artrell, what's going on?
All right, I was able to log in. I logged out, but in the terminal on the browser, there was a get error. But then after that, I get a bunch of arrays.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Excuse me.
All right.
Okay, so you've got a logout 404 not found. So let's go to your backend and show me your logout.
No.
I think we have found why the computer cannot find your logout.
Maybe I don't have the logout. Maybe that's what I'm missing.
In my code, it is 74 through 77.
Okay. So it's right above the off status. Okay. All right, I will work on that.
Let us know. Kalai, what's up?
I have a it's not going back to the home page, like the final step. So
Okay. Do you have in the front end code in the logout clicked function the navigate to?
Mhm.
Okay, sure. Let's take a look. Okay, so you've got a really bad habit of having multiple terminal windows open, and that
Oh.
scares me. So we've got this one running and we've got this one running. So I'm going to close out of this one. And then we're going to go to your post editor. And right here, you do have your navigate to. And let's switch back over to here. So we're going to go to your post editor and not authorize. And it's taking you to your homepage. You're good.
oh, that's okay. Thank you.
You have to hit the OK button twice on that alert. I'm not quite sure why that is.
Okay.
But then it takes you back, so you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Jordan, what's up?
My bad, Patrick's in the breakout with
Caitlin, you're good.
yeah, so when I was helping Patrick, what am I supposed to be checking out right now if it works?
I
Yep.
just completed the day.
So what you want to do, go to your homepage, log in, type in your login info. You should be able to get to post editor without any issues. If that is the case, click log out. Then try and sneak your way back into post editor by editing the URL to go right to post editor. And if you get to post editor, you should have a fluff off error. And then if you hit OK on that twice, it will take you back to the homepage. If you can get to post editor after you've logged out without any errors, something's wrong.
It says fluff off.
Hit OK. You might need OK twice. Did it take you back to the homepage? You're all caught up. Good work. Brandon, what's going on?
So I was having an issue similar to Exona. So I've been going through making sure that all the ports are matching up. But I'm still having issues.
Here's me. Okay, let me request remote. And we're gonna just go through the flow in Chrome and see when we get the first error. So I'm gonna do the console here. I'm gonna clean all of that out. I'm gonna go to your homepage. No errors there, so that's good that it's getting the post from the database. We're gonna log in. Go ahead and enter your info. I never know who changes it and who's keeping it the same. Okay, and we're gonna hit login, and that's our first error. So our login is trying to go to 3002, but our backend.
I just changed that. Yeah, it was 3001, but I literally just changed that one. I didn't even save it.
I would leave it on 1 because our backend, our front end is on 2. So we want to keep the front end and back end on separate ones.
Gotcha.
So let me clear that and try it again. And now it's the front end that's the problem. So we're gonna go 3001 and log in, and we're good. Now everything's good here. So let's try our log out. our logout worked. So we should be able to go to post editor. And this should be throwing an error. This should say, hey, you logged out. You're not allowed to be here. So
Okay.
let's check that. We're going to go post editor. And this auth status should be 3001. So let's refresh. Still not kicking us out. So I'm going to check your logout. And the logout was going to 2. It should have been going to 1. So let's
Gotcha.
try that again. We're going to log out. Took us back to the home page. We go to our post editor, says we're not allowed. You hit OK twice, and it takes us back to the home page, and you're all caught up and good to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So
No
you
problem.
said the front end needs to run on a separate port than the back end.
Correct. And it's not a big deal to change the port in the front end as long as you update cores, but changing the port in the back end has more consequences. All right, how are we doing? Does anyone else need a minute? How are we feeling about the code? We feeling, hey, this is a logout. This is kind of like websites we've used. It's like, all right, got the sessions working, feeling a little bit more secure, right? We're like, no one can get into my blog. We got the hashed and the encrypted password. We're locking them out on the front end. We're thinking we're also secure, right? Well, we've got one more security loophole that we've got to close here. Let's go to our front end, and I'm just going to pull up this post editor code. And I'm going to reference where we make the new post.
You're not sharing.
That's sharing.
Sorry to do that.
No. Needs to be done.
Even though
I'm
you made
in-
fun of me that one day I wasn't as in class and said, well, if Exona was here, I can hear her in the back of my mind saying, hey, Max, share your screen.
All right, in post editor, in our where we do our new post function, our add post function, I'm just going to pull this up and I'm going to leave this up here because what we did was we said, hey, if we are in post editor, go check the auth status. And if the auth status says you're not logged in, boot them out of the page. Okay, we've tested that. That's working. That's all in the front end. But we run into another problem here. The front end is controlling, so no one can get to that form by accident. No one can just post to it. Well, what happens if we fire up Postman? And in Postman, I'm going to go to my local host, 3001, and I'm going to do a new post. And in that new post, I'm going to set it to post. I'm going to get the stupid helper out of the way. I'm going to go to my body. And you guys can follow along with this step if you want to, but you don't have to. This is not a super important one. In our body, I'm going to go to raw. I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to set it to JSON. Well, how do I know to do that? Well, because we said our content type was application JSON, we should use JSON in our request. Now, what gets sent? My title, my tagline, and my content. So I'm going to send that in. I'm going to say my title is security. My tagline is vulnerability. And my content is you've been owned. I need my quotes because it's not a JavaScript object. It is a JSON object. And I come up here and sorry, I hit the send button and I get status okay. I'm like, wait a second, I'm signed out. I'm not logged into anything. Well, if I go to my beekeeper and look at my local DB and make sure to change it over to the blog, my posts now has my security vulnerability. And I'm like, Well, the whole point of this was to make sure that only logged in users could make posts. And we locked them out of the front end. We're feeling so good about ourselves that no one can get to the post editor, just booting them out. But what we didn't do is lock down the backend call. And so now what do we have going on here? My security vulnerability is showing up because some smartass went into Postman and figured out that they could get to my backend instead of going through my front end, which was secure. So we've got to do one more fix for this. We're going to go back to our VS Code. We're going to go to our new post. Where's our new post? Somewhere in here is our new post. Scrolling right by it, and I know I am. Get post, new post. And before we do any of this post create and res.send, I'm going to say if there is not a rec.session.user, I'm going to res dot, and we're going to use a new one. We're going to do a res.status, and we're going to say 401. Does anyone remember what 401 is, going all the way back to Ryan's module? Unauthorized. 401 unauthorized. And we're going to send error true and the message of you little hacker. Else, go ahead and let them create the body and res.send back. Okay. What that should allow us to do is go back to Postman. And when I hit the send button, I get error true, you little hacker. And we can test this by saying, 888-777, just to make sure it's not going in. 666, we hit send. We get the error message. We go back over to the browser and we refresh and we see that new post that we tried to make is not working there. And if we log in, and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, our post isn't there. And it's like, well, why not? Let's pop open our console and we'll see 401 unauthorized. And I'm like, well, I am authorized. I logged in and got me to the forum. What's going on? Whenever we send a request to the backend, like we do in this new post, we have to remember to include the credentials. So let's try that again. We go back to Chrome, we log in, we do our max@zane.tech, we do our QWERTY password. I fill this out again and hit post. And now my post is working while still in Postman locking us out if we are not signed in. So in our new post, we added our, if there is not a user, tell them 401, they're not allowed in. If they are signed in, if we do have that user information, go ahead and create the post, send it back. Then we need to modify our front end to say, hey, when you go to create the new post, include the credentials from the front end. We want to say, hey, when we're creating that new post, also include the information about who signed in. Then we go to our browser and we try and make a new post by logging in. And once we log in, it should allow you to make that new post. And then if you really want to test, you can try making the request in Postman by setting the body to raw and the application type to JSON. Make sure you set this dropdown, hit the send button, and you should get your error message and a 401 unauthorized right here. Leave that up on the screen. Put the other one up on the screen. Just the credentials include here. And we are going to do a quick poll just to see where you guys are at.
Okay, so I just got done with the code.
Mhm.
Ready code. And
You
you want,
should make sure you get your credentials include in
Yep.
post editor. Okay.
Mhm.
Then go to log in, make your post, hit the post button and make sure it shows up in here.
Right, so you
And
want me
then-
to, hold on, you want me to log in first?
Log in.
Okay,
That should take you to post editor.
yep,
Then create some posts.
okay,
And create it, and that should take you back to the homepage and you should be able to see it.
mm-hmm,
Then, if you want to fire up Postman, you're going to do a post request to 3001 new post. In the body tab, you're going to say raw, change the drop down here from text to JSON,
mm-hmm,
throw in some body of, whatever, doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
And then hit the send button and make sure that you get an error true and your status as 401 unauthorized.
For the body, I'm getting an entire code. So I'm just getting code with the body HTML and a header on it.
Share screen.
It's a post, right?
Yes.
Okay, maybe it's because I'm under 3003.
Oh, probably try that. No, your backend isn't your backend 3001?
How do we check?
Down at the bottom, the .listen, server.listen.
Where?
Scroll all the way down in server.js. Nope, you're on 3001.
Okay,
So
so I'm getting this.
hit the send button for me again. Go to your post.create in server.js. Keep going. Okay, so yours is just post, it's not new post. I renamed that at some point. So instead of new post, like I have new post right here, and you have just regular post, which is fine. Just over here in your, I would leave it as post there so it matches your front end. Just change it in your Postman. And hit send on that. Oh,
It's a habit.
there you go.
Perfect, thank you.
You little potty mouth is more like it.
Sorry.
Never apologize for potty mouth for me. I'm one of the biggest. Curse like a sailor and a trucker.
Combined.
All right, where are we at? If you're feeling behind, don't throw in the towel. Raise your hand. Artrell.
All right, I think I'm caught up with the code. Now what am I supposed to try to test?
Okay. Go to the browser.
Okay, hold on. Okay,
Log in.
all right, let me log. Oh, let me log out first. Let me log back in. Well, okay, so log in. All right, I'm logged in.
Okay. Make a post.
Okay,
Did it show up on your homepage?
I don't think it did.
All right, you got a problem. Share your screen.
All right.
All right, so we've got a 404 to post not found. That is because at some point we renamed that endpoint from post to new post. So if you give me remote.
Hold up, before you do that, right
Mhm.
here, I have to change that to new post.
You sure do.
All
And a
right,
capital P.
right,
Lowercase n, capital
right,
P.
right. All right,
Okay, save, try and make a login again, try and make a post. Hit oh. Yep, you're fine. Okay, that worked. So you're good there. You said, hey, the user's logged in, and because they're logged in, they're able to make a new post. Now we're going to switch over to Postman.
hit refresh.
Postman, not Beekeeper.
Oh, yeah.
We're pulling out all the tools tonight.
Yeah, okay. All right. I have no idea what's on my Postman right now. I just gotta switch it over. Just bear with me, Max.
Yep.
Okay. And I don't know what to do from here.
Okay. We are going to change the add to new post in the URL. In the text box, little for here. Let me just
All right,
give me a remote. I'll get you caught up.
all right. I tried.
So the reason why we're using Postman here, and this is the more important part, right? We can test all the authentication in the browser.
Right.
And everything's working here. What we can't test is what happens if the user is not logged in. So that's what we emulate over in Postman. We say, hey, we're going to try and make a new post without the front end. We're going to try and bypass the authentication there. So we're going to do the same thing. We know we've got a title and it's 111, and we've got a tagline, and that's going to be 22, and then the content, and that's going to be test, and I have a semicolon instead of a colon, and that needs to be in quotes, and this needs to be in quotes. So we haven't signed in Postman, right? There's no way that we gave them the username and the password. So when we hit send on this, not only do we get a 401 unauthorized, we get our error message. And the reason why all of that is cool is because my 111 and my 22 didn't get created in my front end.
Can I see that Postman again, please?
You sure can. So post, make sure it's set to post, make sure your URL is new post, set your body to raw, change your drop down from text to JSON, throws any object in with a title, a tagline, and a content, and then hit the send button, and you should see two things. One, this 401 unauthorized, and two, an error message in your body. You're on mute.
I am not getting that.
Share your
I'm
screen.
getting, okay.
Where do you have a red squiggly?
Weird. Okay, never mind.
Good to go. Good work. You can check in your front end and make sure that that post doesn't show up, but it shouldn't. We good? Anyone else need help? All right, so we got a pretty cool flow going on here, right? I'm gonna do one more thing related to auth, and then we're gonna get into associations a little bit, which are cool because it's gonna integrate our authentication that we now have up and running with associations of how do we join two tables together. So I'm gonna switch back to my screen share. We're done with Postman for the night. We've secured our code. We've locked out the hackers. We're good to go. You can go ahead and quit Postman out. I will tell you a story that I've already told Exona. I tried to get a jet black iPhone 7. It was the only year they offered a jet black. It was this very highly polished iPhone that was like shimmering. It was an awesome phone. Well, they had all different kinds of production issues with it because it was so overly polished that Apple had a high standard for it. They just couldn't make enough of that. Anyway, I saw it. I knew I wanted it. I got up at 3 a.m. because the launch day is midnight. They've now fortunately changed that. But anyway, I go in to pre-order it and it says out of stock. And the button's disabled on it. And I go, all right, but are you checking the stock just on the front end and disabling that button? Or are you disabling that and actually checking it on the back end before that order gets to be placed? Believe it or not, Apple had only disabled the button on the front end. So I was able to slip my way through Postman and change my order status, my order color from, black to jet black. And I thought, no way this is going to work. Well, of course, I paid for the order and, everything goes through. And I'm just waiting for someone to call me or email me or, tell me order canceled. And I show up at the Apple store to pick it up in Syracuse. And you should have seen it. It was like I had like the Holy Grail in my hands. Someone brought the phone out and all the Apple geniuses and all the salespeople in the store like started to huddle around me. And they were like, can we hold it? Like, you got the jet black one. How did you get jet black? So Apple did fix that vulnerability next year. And so the following year, they were checking on the server side. They were going in here and saying, hey, when someone makes a new post, don't just lock them out on the front end. Don't just make sure they, can't stumble into a URL. Before we do anything in the database, it might be a good idea to check on that and make sure they're allowed to create something new in the database before we actually go through and create it. Remember, your front end can never be trusted. Someone can always inject code into the front end, or they can use a tool like Postman and make an API call without even having that code in the front end. So whenever you do anything in the back end is usually much more secure. So check out your back end, make sure that you're validating before you allow anything to be inserted or updated into the database. We have any questions about how that flow works? Do we get to kind of see, hey, we log in, we make the session, we check on the front end and see if they're logged in. If they're not logged in, we boot them back to the home page. If they are logged in, when they make that post, we can't just assume that the front end locked them out if they weren't logged in. So we add another check into our new post to make sure that the user is there. Also a good idea to do that on your delete. Hey, if someone accidentally stumbles into this delete, we probably want to make sure that they're signed in before we allow that delete to go through. We aren't going to do that. We're going to do one little final code snippet before break. This is kind of cool because now we get to cherry pick what pieces that we've learned. We've done this auth status thing, and we know how state works. What if we combine those two? Because we already have an auth status endpoint, and we already have our homepage in React. Wouldn't it be nice to say, hey, if the user is logged in, show them the go to post editor link. But if they are not logged in, show them the login link instead. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to head over to our front end, and we're going to go to the post editor page and go up to this check auth. This check auth is already doing everything we want. It's including the credentials, it's handling the JSON, it's even in a use effect for us. So we're going to take the starting at the use effect all the way down to 28. We're going to copy that whole use effect. Then on my code, it's 12 to 28. Just make sure we're starting at the use effect, going all the way down to the closing curly and the empty array. We're going to copy that. We're going to switch back over to our home.js. And we already have a use effect in here. That's okay. We're actually going to paste in the other use effect. And instead of checking to see if they're logged in or not logged in, we're actually going to delete out the entire if-else statement. And instead of handling that if-else, what we're going to do is we're going to add a use state. So I'm going to say const logged in, set logged in is going to equal a use state, and we're going to assume they're not logged in, right? Better to assume they're not logged in than to assume they are logged in and show the wrong link. Then we're going to come down here and we are going to say, once we get the JSON back, set logged in. I missed a G in logged, my bad. Make sure you've got 2 G's in your logged in your use state and 2 G's in your set logged in down in your use effect. We're going to set it to our data.logged in. So we copied and pasted our whole use effect from the post editor into our homepage. We created this new variable in use state because based off of the results of this API call, we want the user interface to go change. Whenever we want to update the user interface based off of some data, we want to store that in state. So we take all of this, we get the logged in response from our auth status on the back end, and we have our set logged in here. Now we've got access to this logged in here. So we can do something kind of cool. We can go down to our very final link, and we can say, if they are logged in, show them a link to the post editor. Otherwise, show them a link to the login screen. This is an inline ternary operator. What this is saying is if this is true, show them this. If this is not true, show them this. If they are logged in according to state, show them post editor. Otherwise, show them a link to the login page. If everything is working, you can go to Chrome. I'm logged in right now, so I can get to the post editor. And if I go back to my home page, I'm still logged in. I didn't log out. I can still get to the post editor. But as soon as I click that log out button, look at what my button is down at the bottom. It is now log in instead of post editor. If you got that working, you are good to go on break. You did not get that working, take a couple minutes, raise your hand if you need help. 3 sections that we added. The first one up here was our use effect that we largely took from post editor. We took out our if else statement and instead put in the set logged in, data logged in. We added that into state. We know we need it in state because we're updating the interface based off of whether they're logged in or not. And then we had to use this logged in somewhere. So we kind of take the power of React and we say, hey, if they are logged in, show them the link to the post editor. If they are not logged in, show them the link to login. And to test all of that, you can go to your homepage. If you are not logged in, this should show a link to the post editor. You can click on it and click log out. It should take you back to your homepage and show you log in. And if you log back in and go back to the homepage without logging out, it should show you the post editor. I'm leaving my screen on this last code snippet because I can't fit both of them on. If you need me to scroll, just let me know. Jennifer, sorry. What's up?
Thanks. I was just hoping you could help me catch up during break. I've caught up a lot, but I'm still getting an app crashed on the back end.
Sure. Go ahead and share your screen unless anyone else needs help. Okay, go for it, Jennifer.
Okay, thanks.
What time should we be back for break, or do you want us to wait until Jennifer is done?
No, you can go and break at least 7:25 or a couple minutes longer.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, you've got an app crashed. I told you I was going to come over and beat you, if anyone remembered.
Remember
When we get the initialized session user ID. Oh, hold on, maybe role hack upstate does not exist. What did I say about copying and pasting code? Copy and paste db.js. You also need to update your username.
Okay, that was the problem. All right. Thank you. Kept looking
No
for
problem.
it. Am I on the right port? Did I not get something correctly?
That will get you.
Yeah, every time.
So save, scroll all the way down in your terminal to make sure we don't have any other errors. And we do. We've got something else using 3001. I'm going to go check over here. And it looks like this is the one hogging it. So I'm going to close this one and then restart it by Control-C, up, enter. And you're connected and good to go.
Okay, fantastic.
So you can test in the front end. I don't know if you have the ternary in with the logged in yet. Oh, you do. So
Yeah.
let's test it.
Yeah, I was trying to keep up. Let's see.
Head over to your browser. Everything's looking good so far.
Let's figure out where my browser is.
Where's Waldo?
I just have to pull it over from my other
No
desktop.
problem. Cool. So you got your login button. That's probably good. Go ahead and log in. And without hitting log out, go back to the home page. Okay. Now look at what our link is. It's to post editor, which is good. That's what we want because we're logged in. So
Yep.
go ahead and click on post editor and then log out. And you're back on login because you just logged out. So you are all caught up.
Great. Thanks, Max.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Artrell.
All right, after we get caught up with the code, are we supposed to test anything or not yet?
Yep, you can go to your homepage and
hold on. Okay,
okay. And does it say login or go to post editor?
it says post editor on the bottom.
Okay, click on to the post editor. And then click log out.
All right, log out. Okay,
And back on your homepage, do you have login or post editor?
it says login.
You are all caught up. Good work.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
I came across a peculiar problem. I did the
Yes.
software update for my laptop, and
Mhm.
everything I downloaded for my like terminal, you know, the packages and stuff are gone. I was just looking at some old code or whatever for VS Code, and it was like your Git isn't installed and all this stuff. I mean, I'm going through the process now, but is there anything essential that I need other than Homebrew?
Homebrew and then brew install node.
Brew install node. Okay, thank you.
And then Postgres shouldn't need to go through brew because it's Postgres app. But if you need help with that, I think I have one more one-on-one slot open tomorrow morning if you're available.
Okay.
If not, I'm pretty booked up, but I have slots on Sunday and on Monday.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Patrick, what's going on? You're on mute.
Okay, could I share my screen and I'm trying to catch up and stuff. Would you mind
Sure.
helping? Okay.
Yeah.
Share screen. Okay.
Okay, so we've got a database crashing in the back end. That's probably a good place to start. So let me go down to the bottom. I'm gonna just stop this and restart it.
Okay.
And you did fix whatever was causing that crash, which is good. So let's see where you're at here. We're going to log out, and that takes you to the home page, which is good. So we're gonna log in.
Oh, and I just use the max.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna log in. That's working. So we'll get out of here. Okay. We'll say 111.222.333 post, and we got to the home page. So we're good there. We're gonna go back to the post editor and we're gonna log out. That takes us back to the home page. Then we're gonna see, hey, can I sneak into the post editor when I'm not logged in? I can't. So that's not authorized. That's good. I hit OK. And it takes me back to the home page. That's all good. You are way more caught up than I thought you might be. Okay, so that's all good. We are going to check in the back end. We want to make sure that in our server.js. When someone makes a new post, if they're not logged in, then block them out. Otherwise, they're allowed to make the new post. So you're caught up there and good to go. The only thing that you're missing is the very last thing that we did in the past 10-ish minutes. That's this logged in. You've got the use state and the set right. So log in. Log in. If we go back to the home page without signing out, you have the post setter. You're caught up. You're good to go.
I am, okay.
Yeah, you've got
Alright.
the link working, which is the last thing we did, and everything else is good.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Last call for help. All right, see you guys at 7:25. Resume recording. We're starting to see this kind of pay off, right? We're starting to see the login screen working, but starting to close little loopholes. We're seeing how we can use authentication in different endpoints in the back end. We're starting to see, hey, we can use React to make things a little bit more interactive, right? Even those little changes of the login link showing either log in or go to post editor. That's something that would have taken like 5 or 6 lines of vanilla JavaScript. But because React is really set up to not only integrate in interactivity, but then to also be able to pull information in from the API, and then based off of that API result, show a different screen, is really when React starts to shine a little bit. So hopefully you guys are starting to look at this and saying, hey, I can get login working on my capstone, right? I can get that user table set up. I can start to see kind of how this information connects in together. So we're going to do one more feature tonight, and that is talking a little bit about association. How do we tie our user to our post? We want to make sure that when we make a new post, we know who is making that post. So what we're going to start out with is we need 2 users. We can't really test to see if this blog post is working or not unless there is another user in our database. So we're going to kind of cheat, and we're going to head over to Beekeeper, and I'm going to go to my users table. And right now my we only have 1 user. Now we couldn't do this technique if we had a user that we wanted to set another password with. We would have to do something more similar to this server started function where we could create another user in here. But we're going to kind of cheat and reuse the password that we've already been using. So I'm going to go in Beekeeper. I'm going to go down to the plus sign. We can leave the ID blank because that automatically gets generated. The email I'm going to use is just like 2@2.com. Just make something up there. And then for the password, I'm just going to go into the password field for max@zane.tech and hit Command A. That hash is really long. You really want to make sure you get the whole thing. So if you double click, it will highlight a piece of it. But then if you hit Command A, you get all of it. We're going to copy that and go right into the password and paste it. Now, you may notice that the password in your database, even though you're using the exact same password as I am, Qwerty, may not be the same as what I'm screen sharing right here. Does anyone remember from the YouTube video why my hash won't line up with your hash?
Because of salting?
Because of salting. Very good. That was a tough question. Very good. Yes, exactly. And when we generate out the hash for this, we're not only encrypting it, we are using 10 rounds, right? That was that cost parameter or the rounds parameter to not only encrypt the hash, but then to take that hash, add another salt on top of it, a random salt of a couple letters, and then rehashing that over again. And so even though we have the exact same input. We are going to get that different output, which prevents the rainbow table attack from actually happening. So salting is one of those cool things that is actually hard to build on your own, because you got to generate random characters, you got to keep track of the salt, all of this kind of stuff. But because we're using bcrypt, which is one of the newer hashing libraries and algorithms, salting is built right in for us. Okay, tangent over. I'm just going to make the first name 2. And then at the created at will get cranky if we don't have a value in here. So we're going to say now, and don't forget your opening and closing parentheses there. And then for the updated at, we're also going to put in now. So the whole thing should be whatever email address you want, just keep track of it. The password should be here. The first name set to whatever, just something different from Max, so we can tell if it's working. In the created at, we're going to modify that to say now, and then the updated at, we're also going to add in now. I'm going to go down to the bottom. Remember, this hasn't run. This isn't inserted in our database yet until we hit the apply button. If you hit apply and got one change successfully applied, you're good to go. If you did not get that and have an error, just raise your hand so we can help you catch up. Jennifer.
I was watching before and not doing it yet. So could you please
Yep.
remind me how to start a new one?
Yes, it is the plus down in the bottom right.
Thank you.
And then you can put in whatever email address that you want, as long as it's a somewhat valid one and not the same as the email we already have in there. The password you're going to copy and paste from the row that you already have. Make sure you hit Command A to get the whole thing selected, because it's a pretty long hash. Make first name whatever you want, as long as it's not the same as the other one. You're going to type in now with parentheses, both for the created at and the updated at, and then you can hit the apply button down at the bottom.
Doesn't like the password that I made up.
Now, make sure you get the password copy and paste it from the other one, because we are going to want to be able to log into that account. Once you've got everything inputted into this row, you can hit apply down at the bottom. Anyone need help? Okay. Going forward here. Now, the goal that we're shooting for, right? Always important to have the end perspective, the end goal in mind. What I would like to do is I want to add an author field to my homepage. I want to know if Max created the post or user number 2 created the post. So in order to keep track of that, I'm going to go back over to my model. I'm going to look in my post.js, and what do we have here? We've got the ID of the post itself. We've got the title, the tagline, and the content. But I want to keep track of one more piece of information. I want to keep track of the user that created that post. Okay, well, that should be pretty easy. We're going to add in another column here called user ID. And I'm going to say that the data types is going to be an integer. It's an integer because we're going to reference the ID of the user in the users table. So in my post, I added in my user ID. So I save that. I go back over to Beekeeper, and I look in my post table. Even after I refresh it, I still don't have a user ID over here. Well, this is kind of a pain of SQL. of weak SQLize won't automatically detect that this is a new column and recreate the table for me. We have two options here. We can either delete the whole posts table, and if we do that, we're going to lose all the content in it. But when we reboot our server, it will recreate the post table with the user ID in it. Or we have another option. We still lose the content inside the table, but if we go to our db.js, in our sync, we can actually tell it to force the sync. Now, you need to be very careful with that force option, because when we go back into our post table and hit the refresh button, you will now see my users are gone. But you will see that I do now have my user ID as part of the post. So that force option, you got to be really careful with it, because it will wipe out the contents of the table, but it will update your columns based off of the force true and the columns in the model. Can anyone think of a third way we could get a new column into the database?
Is it insert?
Not insert, but it's similar. We could go in and write the raw SQL to say alter table and write out the SQL to add that column in there. And if you were working with any kind of production data, you wouldn't even dream of using the force true in here. You wouldn't dream of deleting the whole table and just starting over from scratch. You would run the alter table command and actually add in that column manually. But when we're in developer mode, when we're not really worried about the data inside of it, we can either right click on posts and go down to drop and then restart our backend database, and it will use the columns in the model. Or we can say this force true, and that's what will create the user ID column for us, with the side effect of deleting all of the data in that table. Now, you will drive yourself crazy if you leave this force true on, because every time the server restarts, your tables are going to disappear on you spontaneously. So make sure if you do use this force true, that after you save it, after the table restarts, after you have that new column in there, to set that back to false, because otherwise you'll have random data disappearing from your database and you won't be able to figure out why. Jennifer, what's up?
I'm so sorry. I thought I had this in Beekeeper, and in fact, I don't even see my previous email.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what? It actually, because we had that force true on, it deleted out our other user account. So let me get you caught up. I'm going to request remote. You got your user ID working, so that's good. Let's check in your backend. I'm just going to restart your server.
And this happened before.
And let's refresh. Nope, you still don't have your user there. So that user gets created in server.js under our server started. Server started. Find one. Well, why isn't that working? Find one where the user is that. If there is not a user, user.create.
Let me put my info in there and see if it changes. It was there like a minute ago until I tried entering in the new email address and creating a new
Close that out. You got me stumped. Let's see what's going on. Let's check your db.js. That's going to you, going to the blog. You've got your force true. Let me save that. I noticed Prettier didn't run, so maybe it was just the save that needed to happen.
I have an autosave.
User server started. Your curly braces are right. Your create is right. Do we pull user from? We pull user from the right place.
Should I restart my beekeeper?
Let's just do this and see what's coming out of the user, because user is null if there's not a user. Well, it says it's creating it. What's going on with your beekeeper? Blog refresh. Just switch it to 1 and switch it back. And open our. I like your idea. Let's try quitting beekeeper. Oh, you know what? Let me try this. Let me go to your db.js. Let's put your force back to false. And I bet you, remember me saying you go crazy when data goes missing? I bet you that force was wiping it out.
It happened before I added the force.
Let's go back to beekeeper.
The force is not with me.
Well, apparently neither did your. Oh, is your beekeeper on another monitor?
Oh, did you restart? Did you restart the server to trigger the creation of the user after you changed it back to false?
It should automatically run because of
Oh,
no.
I see what you. Oh,
Here's my beekeeper. No, wait.
Beekeeper.
I grabbed the wrong one.
There we go. Okay, let's try firing this back up. I think it was an issue with that force. There's our user. Okay, so you're good.
Oh God, thank you.
So that a good lesson, exactly what I was saying could happen, right? Your data goes missing when you leave that force on, and you're like, where's my data? We actually lost that other row that we created because we left force on. So go ahead and go in. If you have the force in here, make sure the force is not with you. Make sure that that is set to false, because we're going to lose data in our database if we don't have that set to false. We are then going to go back over to our database and redo that second user account. So we're going to add the row again. Sorry, we're going to recreate this. Make sure you get the whole password selected. Paste that in. User number 2 created now. Make sure you got the parentheses after the now. Hit apply, and you should get ID 2 for that new user. And now that we've got the force off, we won't lose that new user account that we created. Everyone is redoing that. Caitlin, do you have any fun SQL stories to share?
What was the one I told you about the other day? Oh, it was all. There was a database. There was more than one database at work, an old job. And somebody had used the word all as like an abbreviation for something, but in SQL, that's like not a good idea. So they were using it, and I was working on something with one of my coworkers, and we found this like comment in a stored procedure, which is like a SQL. It's kind of like man, how would you even describe this stored procedure?
Just a chunk of pre-written SQL, kind of.
Pre-written SQL, and like it gets run by a job, and you can run it on like increments, so it can like update tables on an increment. If you want, for example, like just as an example. But anyway, it was in this like random stored procedure that we had to look at for a bug fix, and there was this big long comment about how the acronym all has infiltrated all the databases and it's just a horrible idea, and so that this is just the bane of my existence and I can't stand it. I can't believe someone would do this. It was like this big rant in like commented code, and it was like we were just like, wow, someone really was very upset about this, and it was still there. Like nobody ever fixed it. It never, like, it was too far gone. Like you couldn't do anything about it, and it was like the funniest thing ever. I don't know. It's probably not funny because it was one of those, like, you had to kind of like be in the moment and like experience it, but it was pretty funny.
Okay.
Someone hated it enough to leave a big comment.
So we should be in our users
came
table.
outside. Is this halal pepperoni? Okay. Anyways.
We should have our 2 rows. Make sure your row is no longer in green. If your row is in green, hit the apply button at the bottom right. Make sure you've got an ID of 2 on it. And finally, make sure your force is set to false. We do not want to accidentally lose that user account again. If your force is set to false, if you've got your second user account here, we are good to continue. So what we're going to do is we are in our server.js. We're going to go back in to our new post. In our new post, instead of just putting in the rec.body, we are also going to say, hey, take the whole rec.body and dump it into an object. And also include the user ID, which is going to come from the rec.session.user.id. This is our spread operator. What it's basically saying is take whatever's in the rec.body, dump it out into this new object, and then also include this user ID. Schneider, just watch your mute button. So we've got our post.create, our rec.body. We're also using the user ID. We can use this user ID because in our post, we added in that new user ID data types integer. So we're going to test all of this out. I'm going to head to my front end. I'm going to refresh my page, and now I lost all my blog posts because I did that force true. That's all right. We're going to sign in, and I'm going to sign in with my first account, max@zane.tech, QWERTY. I'm going to log in, and I'm going to make a post. Max wrote this. I'm going to hit the post button, and I don't see anything different on the front end. However, if I go to my beekeeper and I open my post table, notice not only do I have my content in here, I have my user ID 1 in here. Okay. That's pretty cool, but we got to test that. So I'm going to go back to Chrome. I'm going to go to my post editor, and I'm going to log out. I'm then going to log back in with my second account, which has the same password. I'm going to log in. I get to my post editor again, and I'm going to write someone else wrote this. So I hit the post button. Now I still don't have the author information on here. I still don't know who wrote it. But if we go back to our beekeeper and refresh, notice what my user ID is here. I should see my user ID as 2. And if I go back over to my server.js, we can see how is that user ID coming out. All of that freaking hard work that we did yesterday to get the session working is now starting to pay off. I can tell when we create a new post who made that post because we can retrieve the ID out from the user in the session. So at this point, log in with the first account, make a post, go back to the post editor, log out, log in with the second account, make a post with their account, get back to the home page, then switch back over to your beekeeper, hit the refresh button in the bottom, make sure you're in the post table. And if you are, you should see the two posts you created with user ID 1 and 2.
What file did we make those changes on?
That is in server.js under the new post endpoint, which is line 24 in my code. The end result should be, after you create both your posts, log in with the different accounts, you should have user ID 1 and user ID 2 showing in your database. Don't forget to use the refresh button down here in the corner. Or try.
All right, Max. I got kind of lost, so I finally updated my line in the await post create and on the server.js.
Yep.
What did we do after that?
Go to the browser.
Okay.
Log in if you're not logged in to the first user account.
Okay. Hold on. Logged in.
Create a post.
Okay.
Go back to the post editor.
Okay.
Log out.
Okay.
Log in again
With user 2?
with user 2.
All right. Okay, it should be the same one.
Same
Password.
password, different
Okay.
email.
It logged in.
Create a post in that account. Now, there should be no difference on the home page yet, but go back over to Beekeeper and refresh the posts table in the bottom right. And you should see not only your two posts there, but the two different user IDs.
All right, so in the bottom right, next to the plus button, I hit refresh.
Yep.
Okay. And I see both accounts there, if you will.
Both posts there, or is it accounts?
It says no email, password, first name created. I'm seeing
Okay.
that for user 1 and 2.
Switch over to the posts table. Double click on posts.
Now I see them.
Do you see user ID 1 and 2 in your different posts?
Yes, I do.
You are all caught up.
Thank you.
Anyone else need help?
I'm restarting both my front and back,
Okay.
typing in my password. And I tried it with yours, and they both tell me that the password's incorrect.
Okay, share your screen. Let's take a look. Let me request remote. And can you actually take me to Beekeeper?
Mhm. Did it come up?
No, I'm still on the login screen.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, so here's the problem. We can't sign in. We can't just put an unencrypted password in there and expect it to work. What we can do is borrow the encrypted password from up here and use it down here, which will make the password the same for both the accounts. So if I apply on that, now when we go in to mine, we're in, and we're going to say max. And then we're going to go back to the post editor. We're going to log out. We're going to log back in, and I'm going to grab your email.
I just realized what I did. I used your encrypted password
Yep,
and tried to log in with that. That's why it wouldn't work. Instead of
that's it. Yes, you got it. So we're going to post there. We're going to head back to Beekeeper. We're going to make sure posts, our user ID is null. So something's not working there that should be. So we're going to go back to your code. And this isn't the right one. Let's go the other way.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah. I think just one more over, and I'm maybe.
So at the front or the back end?
That's my backend.
Yes, no. Which one of mine do you want to look at?
I want your backend.
Then, oh good. Let me just scoot it on over.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna look in the where we make the post and rec.session.user.id. And we're there. Okay, so I'm going to go to your post editor. I'm going to say Jennifer 2. I did not spell your name right. Copy, paste. We post. And we go back over to Beekeeper and we refresh. And now your user ID, it's 4, but it's 4 because if we look in your users table, that is ID number 4, which is okay. So while I'm in here, I'm just going to kind of hard code these by just saying 1 and 4 so they don't cause problems down the road.
Okay.
And you're all caught up.
Thank you.
Jordan.
I am not all caught up. Oh. Can you move that? I am not all caught up. So I made the first post and I feel like I must have missed a step in there because I don't know where it identifies the second user and where I'm supposed to specify that.
So share your screen, let's take a look.
I can't hear you. Now I can hear you.
Share your screen, take a look.
Okay, my bad. Okay, so I made the first post, and then I realized that over here, I didn't change anything to have a second one. So where do I put the second one?
You don't. You log out and log back into the other account.
What's the other account? Where do I specify?
Whatever you put in your Beekeeper. So go to Beekeeper, go to the users table, and you should have a different email address in there. That's the one that you want to use.
This one.
Yes. Now it scares me that your password hashes are different. Maybe it won't cause a problem. Give it a try.
Okay, I have to move this over. I'm sorry. I hate Zoom. And
And you're continuing the anxiety streak with like a 20% battery.
then- My bad. I'm sitting right next to the charger too. I'm a piece of shit.
Now, don't copy your hash there. That's the mistake Jennifer made. You want to
Okay.
type in the actual password, which is QWERTY. Okay, good. Now create a post with that account. Swear to God, if you go for Catherine Heigl again. What do you have against Anne Hathaway? You monster.
She's terrible. Did you see Did you see her as Catwoman? The Princess Diaries? That's where it started. And
Okay,
Yeah.
now we can't see the author in there yet. But if we go to the posts
oh, sorry. Where?
in Beekeeper, yep. Double click. On the word posts, not on the little arrow. There you go. Oh no. You didn't do your force true. All right, you're missing the user ID column. We did the force true, but I don't want you to lose everything in your database. So this is going to be a lesson for everyone. If you don't want to lose everything in your database, but you still need to add a new column, what we can do is we can say alter table posts, and then something like add column, user ID. Oop, I'm in caps. User ID, which is an integer. No way this works from memory. We hit run, and now you got user ID, but it's not cased right. Drop column into user ID. And then we add the column. And is it single quotes? Is it double quotes? No, of course, it's the last one I'm going to try, backticks. Oh, come on. So there was single quotes. Oh, integer. Got the integer. There we go. Now you've got your user ID in there. So when you make another post,
It's a really bad movie.
She was in Les Mis.
I don't give a damn about Les Mis. That was more what's his face? Hugh Jackman than anything.
now when we look in the posts and refresh. Okay, you're still missing your user ID. And I think that is because when we make a new post in your backend, you did it there. Did we update the model? Nah, that's where it's missing. We've got to tell the model, hey, there's a new column in there, data types dot integer.
Okay.
Post, for the love of God, please have a user ID. There we go.
Nice.
So we're gonna
Thank you.
go back to your users, and I'm just gonna grab some random ID like 3, and I'm gonna put it in here and here and here, just so when we get to the next step, you can tell them apart.
Cool. Thank you.
Exona, what's up? Other than you being on mute.
Yeah, no, I figured as much. So I think I got all of the code because I came in a little late. But then when I go into the website, it's giving me a failed to fetch error.
Share your screen, just take a look. Oh, there you go. Took a minute. Okay, failed to fetch post editor 14. That is usually because the backend crashed. So let's take a look at your backend. And it sure did crash because you've got your force going on here that isn't quite right. So your force in here becomes the force true. And this is gonna force the sync. So it's gonna empty out your database, but
Mhm.
it will add the new column. So if we go back into Beekeeper and refresh, now we've got user ID as part of the posts. What just happened to Beekeeper?
I
Oh,
don't
there we
know.
go. I don't know what this is.
Oh, this is a
Oh, that's
Slack.
Slack.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Okay, so now you've got your user ID showing in here. What
Mhm.
we need to do is then go back in and remember to turn force off, because otherwise it will overwrite data that we have in the database.
Mm.
So what we did is we went into users and we added a new one, and we just did some example email address, took the password and used it from the other account, and then said like second user pass, and then now and now. And then basically what you should be able to do is sign into the first account, make a post, sign out, go back to the other account, make a post. And if all of that is working, then in your post table, you'll see two different user IDs in the different rows.
Okay. I'll do that.
We are one step away from finishing everything tonight. So at the finish line here, we would like on this homepage to get the author's name of the post to show up. But that information isn't available in the posts table. Only the user's ID is. Now, this is proper database design, right? We've got one user and they can have many blog posts. So we designed the database right, but there should be some way to do that inner join. But we use SQLize. We can't just say inner join. We can't just modify our SQL query. So what we end up doing is we head over to the db.js and we say, hey, the post belongs to a user. And the way you can tell what post belongs to the user is by using the foreign key user ID. So we said, hey, the post, it knows what the post is. It's pulling it in from our post file. The post belongs to, this is a SQLized keyword, a user. And the way you can tell what post belongs to which user is by the foreign key in the post table of user ID. Now that we told the database that that relation exists, we've got to tell it, hey, I want that information included when you give me the posts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to our server.js, and we're going to find the posts function. Sorry, I thought we moved something, but that must have been in the chat project. So when we get the posts, we want to find all of the posts, but we don't want to just find the posts. We also want to include the model user. And just to see if that's going to work, Oh no, we'll do this. So we find all of the posts and we include the user's information. If that works, that means over in our front end code, when we loop over all of the posts, I should also be able to include a new p tag that says by the post.user.first name. And if that works, we head over to Chrome and we refresh and check out by max by user number 2. So that's really powerful because by modifying our db.js and saying, hey, posts belong to the users, and we set up this foreign key right, when we get the posts from our database, we are able to include the user information, which means that on the front end, when we're referencing the post, we are able to access the user from there and put their first name as part of it. And if all of that works, we have the author's first name showing up here. One final thing we're doing, don't worry, it's related to this, and then we're going to call it a night. There's this network tab over here. And if you go into the network tab, you can actually see all the different API calls that happened in order to make this page work. We go into the posts page. We can see our post, we can see it 200'd, we can see it was a get, but we can also go into the the preview tab. And the preview tab is showing us a preview of that response. So we pop this open and I look in this object and I'm like, all right, here's my content and my ID and all of that stuff. That's pretty cool. And I keep looking in here and I go, oh, look, here's my user. That makes sense. My user is an object. So that's why I had to say post.user.first name, because the user information is included in an object. So I pop that open. Does anyone see a problem here?
It looks like some of the information is being repeated, or just how that information is stored in the user. I don't know if that's just like previewing how the information should be, but it just looks like it's duplicating maybe.
It's not actually duplicating because this ID is referencing the user ID. This ID is referencing the post ID, right? So this like updated at is when the post was updated. This is when the user was updated. So even though they're using the same fields, it's not actually duplicated data. So we can see this is what the user 2 looks like. The issue that we have is a security issue. Can anyone pinpoint it?
Well, I see the
Password.
password is showing even though it's in
Even though it's encrypted, I'm signed in to user account 2. I shouldn't be able to see the password of user account 1. And even worse, if you're not signed in at all, we're sending back anyone who has made a post anywhere. We're sharing the password with the front end. Even though it's encrypted, we're sending a little bit too much information about that user. We probably don't want to be sending the password and the time they created their account and all of that information when all we want to be doing is sharing their front end, or I'm sorry, their first name. And so in order to do that, we just need one more change in here. We say, hey, the only attributes that you should be looking up about the user are their first name. And if we do that and refresh in the front end, and we go now to our posts and look at the information coming back, all we see in the user is their first name. We don't have their password and all kinds of other sensitive information, maybe like their email. We may not even want to share everyone's email. We may only want to share their name. And so by limiting the attributes here, we are limiting what information is included about the user. If you have your user and your user 2, you can go for the gold. Make sure the attributes, the only attribute information coming out is their first name, and you are finished for the night. No homework over the weekend. Focus on your capstone. Try and get one full stack feature working. It doesn't have to be login, although it can be. Try and get your database set up. Try and get your first model working. On Tuesday, you're going to have an option. We can either implement the forgot password flow, which is what I would encourage, or we can focus on getting comments to work in our blog and talk a little bit about tracking comments, getting a little bit just more practice, full stack, building the interface, getting the interactions to work, kind of focusing on that. That would be more of a review. The forgot password would be more of new content. Either way, no matter which one you pick, what we're going to do is spend the last... Oh, wait, we got the capstone check-in there. So we're going to do capstone check-in, and then you guys can decide if you want to do forgot password, which is going to be a little bit more challenging, but a really useful feature to implement. And you'll learn how to send emails programmatically from the backend if you choose to do that. Or we can work on comments, which may be closer to a couple of your capstones and a feature that you may want to implement. So capstone check-in on Tuesday, followed by your choice of either forgot password or comments based off of what you vote for. Focus on your capstone. I am... unless you've booked with me already for tomorrow, I am booked out on Friday and Saturday. However, I do have one-on-one still available for Sunday and Monday. And as always, if things pop up as you're working on stuff, don't hesitate to Slack me. With the remaining 8 minutes, you don't have to stay in the meeting, but go back through, make sure everything that we did tonight is soaking in. See if there are any questions that pop up. Don't be afraid to leave your inline comments, right? Practice with this code. This is a lot of freaking code, but hopefully those concepts are solidifying a little bit more. Hopefully we're seeing an app come to life in front of us. Have an awesome evening. If you got your code working, feel free to head out. Otherwise, I will stick around and help you guys get caught up. Artra.
All right, so I think I'm caught up with the code. So after the last thing I worked on was in the what are we in? In the home.js.
Yep.
And I added I was like line 50 something.
Share screen. It will just go quicker.
Fair enough. I'm trying to be fancy and tell you what line I'm on and all that good stuff.
All right, you got your host.user.firstname. That's good. We got our include model user. We did add one more line, and that was the attribute's first name to make sure the password was not leaking out to the front end unintentionally. So we say attributes first name. And we got a crash because I can't type at 8:24 at night. These are supposed to be an array because in theory we could include multiple attributes if we wanted. Okay, we're gonna go to here. Nope.
Oh, hold on.
Sorry.
Is that the one? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's refresh. And it is functioning. You're done. You're good to go.
All right, thank you.
The whole thing that we did was, and this will be a good recap for anyone who's still here. We went to the backend and we told, well, this is my code, but same idea. We told the database that the post belongs to a user. In other words, the user has making the post, and the way that you can tell the post and the user is because we've got the foreign key of user ID. Then in our server.js, we can tell it when you get the posts, also include the user information, but only their first name. Then when we're going through the posts and dealing with it in the front end, we're able to access the user information here, because we said .user, and then we get access to the first name, which we included from our query. And all of that is, of course, tied to the rec.session, which is keeping track of which user is signed in, so that when we create the post, it is recording the right one. Exona, you're up.
Yeah, you can hear me. I just wanted to see if my code was right. And
You are. Yeah. The main thing is that the user's first name is showing up on each one of the posts.
okay.
Right. And that's kind of cool because the post table only has the user ID. Oh, you done broke it.
How did I break it?
Your backend is offline. We've just fixed that. Come on.
What I do? What I do? What did I do?
db.js, you must have
Not
you're full-
saved it.
Oh, old error. App crash in your include because it has like 40 gazillion syntax things in here. That closes that, which you need one more of those.
I have it
Maybe.
though.
Oh no, you had that on the next line. Okay, hold on. We've got maybe the semicolon was the only problem. I think that was it.
Oh my god.
Scroll down, go back, refresh. Yeah, you're good.
I hate that, by the way. That is my biggest pet peeve.
What
Is the
having a-
asterisks. It's literally like just the semicolons and the colons and yes, thank you.
No problem. Good work.
Thanks.
Oh, there we go. Jennifer, you're up.
Thanks. It just didn't follow when we had added the attributes. I have include.
Okay.
Model first name for the attributes, but
Yep.
there was something else I didn't follow at that time.
Okay, share your screen. I'll show you. Was it the stuff in capital U for user? And then let's switch to Chrome. And refresh. Oh, you don't need to log in. Just go back to the home page and your front end, I think, is offline.
Hmm.
Can you go to your front end in VS Code? Let me just request remote.
Because that was the only thing we added, right?
Oh, this is mine, not yours. This is my front end, not your front end.
Where'd my front end go?
I think it got closed by accident, and that's why it's offline.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, try an npm start on that. That's better. Okay, let's go back to your homepage. Okay, so you can see here Jennifer 2, because that's what you were signed in with, compared to me, which is what you were signed in with. So you're all caught up here. The only other thing that I did at the end was I went into inspect and into network. And what's kind of cool is that you can see a list of all of the API calls that are happening here. And one of them is the posts. So if you open that up and look at the preview, you can see all of the data coming back from the API. The problem that the putting in the attributes fixed was when we didn't include.
It was the security issue.
Oh, wait, it was a security issue, but your. Huh? Wait, how is that working?
Yeah.
Your user information isn't. You've confused me.
Yeah, I've confused me. Because
we're in home.
since you've last,
Posts.
all I changed was that one part where it was the model and the attributes.
Card body. Oh, okay. So we don't have. Okay, hold on. I'm almost caught up now. This include is supposed to be part of this find.
That's where I,
So include model attributes. Close that, close that, close that.
You have an extra comma on the next line down.
Oh, see, Caitlin, this is why we need you. Okay, thank you. Now that we are including that info, we can modify our front end to say underneath the title, we can say there's a new div in here that says the post is by the post.user.firstname.
Okay.
And we close that div. Because we are including the info about the user here, and because our database knows, no, it doesn't. Because our database knows that the post belongs to a user because the foreign key of user ID is set. When we go to the front end and refresh, we are able to see what username made that post.
There it is. Okay.
So kind of let me just recap that. Post, we tell it in db.js how the relationship is set up.
Right.
Then when we go get the posts from the database, we tell it to include the users. And we tell it to limit the user information to just the first name. And then finally, in our front end, come on. Okay, well, that's just given up on me. In the front end, we added in that little by post.user.firstname, and that's what made that show up.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're all caught up. Good work.
Thanks.
Brandon.
Okay, so earlier, like before you made the force function, I was following along and that cleared out my database. So then I tried to re-put the
Okay, you got to be careful there because those aren't hashed passwords. So our entire login is not going to work.
Exactly.
So
I've been trying to log in and it's like incorrect. I'm like, I don't remember how to fix this.
So what we can do, we could do another force, but then we would lose everything again, and that would be a nightmare. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to cheat. We're going to go down. I didn't show this, by the way, so this is not something that you're missing. We can take this bcrypt hash sync and just console log it out. And that's going to dump our password hash right into the console. See, this is what you get for sticking around. You learn all these cool tricks. So we're gonna copy that whole thing and shove it right into the database. And that means that we just set both of those accounts to the password purity.
Okay.
See if you can sign in now. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you got a little bit of catch up to do, but hopefully it will go pretty quick.
Yeah, I got the ending portions of what we were doing, like with the this post was made by, but yeah, that was the one part that I got a bit caught up in. Okay.
Yeah, and the fact that your post isn't working, you've probably got something. Let me just switch you over to your backend. You've got an app crashed because I think your post. No, you got that right. Let me look at your server. Your new post. Body, rec that session, user ID. No, that's right. Let me see. You've got your user ID in the table. Okay, now you've really got me confused. Insert error missing column. Do we have? Caitlin, you want to pull another miracle out here? User ID. User ID. Oh, is it? Nope, user ID, rec session user ID. It's in missing column. Perhaps he meant to reference the column posts.user ID. Of course we did. That's why we called it user ID. Is it post? What if we just reboot it and see if there's some weird old error? I'm not optimistic, but we'll give it a try. Post? No.
So it's
Search into
crashed
ID.
post.
Content, user ID. Values. Let's try. Console.log, rec.body, and rec.session.user.id. Rec session user ID, yeah. Okay, I know it crashed, but what did it log out? User ID with a lowercase d does not exist.
Wow.
But where is it even getting that? Oh, too far. Title, tagline, content, 1. So that's not the problem because it's capital D there. User, everything's right in there. And then the post. Am I crazy? Is that's a capital D, isn't it?
Yeah. Or no. Oh, sorry.
You got me stumped. Why is it? DB. Force false is fine. That's a capital D. Let's just see. Can we search everything for user ID?
Max, foreign key is
Yeah.
Foreign key.
foreign key is spelled wrong.
Oh.
I was muted and I kept trying to say it and I didn't know I was muted.
No, I'm gonna ask you for help and then just decide to ignore your help when you find the exact same problem.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh my God. Thank you so much,
So
guys. That was
I found
driving
it
me
too, I
crazy.
guess.
I also just noticed the foreign. I was like, okay, I was trying for the cursor too. So.
And do you know, I've had that exact problem. I've spelled foreign key wrong and just been like, why is this not work? Like, I use associations all the time. Why is this not working? Because foreign is just one of those words that you spell wrong all the time. And
Absolutely bang my head against the keyboard for the same kind of stuff.
You think the problem's somewhere completely different, and then you just misspelled something.
Yeah,
All right.
it's something
Awesome.
so stupid usually. Oh,
yep.
Thank you so much.
and it always
All right.
takes somebody else's eyeballs to see it. You can never
Yes.
find it yourself.
All right, Kalai, you're up. Finish us off.
I just have a last question about you were showing the password and stuff, so I just want to see where to find out that one, just to see.
Sure.
Okay.
Bye, Brandon. Bye, Archel.
Okay, so what we did is you are totally in the right place. Let me request remote. So I close out this one, which lets you see more of the activity here. And then it only records the network activity if you have this tab open.
Okay.
So now that you have it open and when you hit refresh, now you'll see all the stuff down here. And that's where we went into the posts and went into preview and we're able to see all the information about the user.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Okay.
So network tab is a little weird because you have to have it open and then make the API call, and then you're able to see all the data inside of it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for waiting. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you guys. Have an awesome night.
Bye.